When I was 12, my parents left me at a gas station 80 miles from home. I slept behind a dumpster, disappeared for 18 years, then returned at my brother's wedding, with one photo that exposed them all. My name is Isaac, and I'm 30 now. But some memories do not fade. They ferment. They sit somewhere deep inside you and grow sharper with time. I do not talk about my childhood very much. Not because I have forgotten it, but because saying it out loud makes it feel real again. It makes me feel like I am 12 years old, standing in the middle of that gas station parking lot all over again, clutching a candy bar I did not have money to pay for, watching my parents' taillights disappear into the night. It happened in August, right before school started. We had gone on one of those awkward family bonding trips my mother always insisted we needed. Except bonding in our house meant everyone pretending my father's rants were wisdom, and my older brother Caleb's every mediocre thought was a gift to mankind. I was the quiet one, too sensitive, too soft-spoken, always in the way. On that particular day, I had spilled a Sprite in the back seat. Caleb, who was 16 at the time and already a master at deflecting blame, smirked and said, "I did it on purpose." My father pulled over at the next gas station off the highway, his eyes blazing. "You're not a baby anymore," he barked. "You want to act grown. You can figure your own way home." At first, I laughed. I thought it was one of his twisted jokes. But then the back of the SUV slammed shut, and they just drove away. I ran after them for a few seconds, calling their names, but my voice cracked and disappeared beneath the roar of engines and tires. A clerk poked his head out from the gas station door, a cigarette dangling from his lips, and gave me a look like I was just another stray someone had dumped there. That night, I slept behind the station's dumpster. I curled into myself and tried to stay still. My heart pounded every time a car passed. I remember counting the hours. I was 80 miles from home with no money, no phone, and not a single soul to call. When I asked the clerk for help, he refused. "Ain't a daycare kid," he muttered. I did not cry. I think that part of me froze that night. The part that believed family meant anything unshakable. Eventually, the next morning, I found a payphone and called a teacher I trusted, Mrs. Valencia. She was the one who picked me up and drove me back to town. I told her my parents must have forgotten me. She did not believe that. I could tell by the way her hands tightened around the steering wheel. But she did not press me. She just dropped me off, made sure I had food, and told me I could always call her. When I walked through the front door of our house, no one looked surprised. No one said, "Sorry." My mother glanced up from her laptop and said, "Took you long enough." Caleb was on the couch playing video games. He did not even pause the game when he muttered, "Should have walked faster." My father never acknowledged it at all. The next morning at breakfast, he just nodded at me, like everything was normal. That was the day I stopped trying to belong. I finished high school like a ghost moving through the hallways. I ate lunch alone. I studied in silence. I kept my head down and learned how to survive without expecting anyone to turn around for me. I got out as soon as I turned 18. I worked 3 jobs, put myself through community college, and then transferred to a university across the country without telling anyone. I changed my number. I never left a forwarding address. And for the first time in my life, I started breathing on my own. I spent the next decade building a life they knew nothing about. I became a software engineer. I moved to a city where no one ever said the words "man up" like it was a cure for trauma. I made friends who saw me as grounded and loyal. I even adopted a rescue dog named Max, a skittish little mutt who flinched at raised voices. Max and I understood each other. I never thought I would hear from my family again. Then, last week, a letter showed up at my apartment. There was no return address, but the handwriting on the front was unmistakably my mother's. Loopy, dramatic, almost theatrical. I opened it slowly, half expecting some legal threat or another passive-aggressive note about abandoning the family. Instead, it was a thick envelope. Inside was a wedding invitation from Caleb engraved in gold lettering. It was showy and traditional, the kind of invitation that screamed rented elegance and fake smiles. Tucked inside was a folded piece of notebook paper handwritten by my parents. "Isaac, we know things have been distant between us, but Caleb is getting married, and it would mean a lot to the family if you could attend. He asked that we reach out to you personally. We hope you'll come. We'd love to reconnect. Mom and Dad." Reaching out. Like nothing had ever happened. Like they had not left me to rot behind a gas station dumpster when I was 12 and never once apologized. Like Caleb was not the golden boy whose shadow I had never been allowed to step out of. I sat there staring at the note for a long time. My fingers tightened around the edge of the paper until it crinkled. For a moment, I almost tossed it into the trash. Almost. But then, something in me paused. I flipped the invitation over. Fancy venue. Outdoor ceremony. Formal dress code. There was even a QR code to RSVP, as if I were just another distant relative. As if they had not taught me what it meant to be disposable. I stared at the note again. It would mean a lot to the family. Interesting. Because I was not the same kid they had dumped on the side of the highway anymore. And if they wanted me back in the picture, I had a few ideas about how I could frame it. Let's just say I did not RSVP right away, but I did start planning quietly, carefully, the way I had learned to do everything. Because some debts do not get paid in words, they get paid in presence. And sometimes showing up is the loudest thing you can do. The moment I saw Caleb's fiance's name printed in embossed cursive on the invitation, I knew exactly what kind of wedding this was going to be. Emily R. Kensington, upper middle class perfection, lawn games, a live quartet, personalized cocktail napkins with their initials. The Kensingtons were local royalty back in my hometown. Old money, old gossip, old grudges. I remembered Emily vaguely from school. She was always dressed like she was heading to church or a job interview, even at 15. The kind of girl who never had to fight for attention because it was handed to her like an inheritance. So Caleb had landed her. Of course he had. The charming oldest son. Quarterback smile. Parents who orbited around him like he was the sun. My parents probably wore their approval like jewelry. I looked Emily up online that same night. She was exactly what you would expect. Dental school graduate, curated Instagram, inspirational quotes, cappuccino art, engagement photos under a tree that looked like it had been rented from a wedding magazine. Buried in the tags of one post was a link to their wedding website. I clicked it. Welcome to Caleb and Emily's big day. Countdown 3 weeks. Location: Stonebrook Vineyard and Lodge. Registry: Bloomingdale's, Crate and Barrel, Amazon. Dress code: black tie, optional. Please arrive 30 minutes before the ceremony begins. Shuttle transportation available from the guest hotel. We are so excited to celebrate with friends and family. Right. There was even a section titled The Love Story. Caleb had written it himself, or at least it was written from his perspective. It was so polished, it could have been written by a public relations firm. I was always the kind of guy who believed in fate. But nothing prepared me for Emily. Her grace, her kindness, the way she looked at me and saw more than just the guy I used to be. More than the guy he used to be. I read that line 3 times. Then I remembered what he used to be. A bully in khakis. A liar with a halo. The same boy who once pushed me into a pond at my own 12th birthday party and told our parents I slipped. I had to walk home soaked while everyone else ate cake. They laughed about it for years. I was not planning to go to the wedding, not until I saw that line, because there was Caleb rewriting his own history, pretending there had been no collateral damage on his path to manhood. And now the same people who had literally left me behind were calling me family again. I did not RSVP online. That would have been too easy. Instead, I called an old friend from college named Jenny. She worked in logistics now, and through her, I arranged for a high-end formal suit to be sent to me. Custom fit, midnight blue, a vest that looked like it belonged in a James Bond film. I booked a room at the same luxury guest hotel listed on the wedding site. I paid upfront and used a slightly different name. I did not want them to know I was coming. Not yet. If they were going to pretend the past did not exist, I figured I could give them a taste of their own game. 2 weeks before the wedding, I sent a single email to the RSVP address provided. It belonged to Emily. Looking forward to the celebration. Please don't mention I'm attending. I'd like to surprise the happy couple. Isaac. There was no reply, but it was marked as read. The week leading up to the wedding, I cleared my schedule, arranged a sitter for Max, and packed light. Just the suit, a pair of polished shoes, and one old photo folded and worn. It was a picture of me at 12 years old, standing outside that gas station with a backpack and a blank stare. Mrs. Valencia had taken it the morning she picked me up. Years later, she had printed it and mailed it to me with a note that simply said, "You survived." I was not sure what I was going to do with the photo yet, but it felt right to bring it. When I arrived at the vineyard the day before the wedding, the place looked like a movie set. Rolling hills, polished wooden beams, fairy lights strung through archways, perfect weather, perfect people. Every detail had been calculated to broadcast warmth and elegance, but the kind that excluded people like me by design. The rehearsal dinner was already in full swing. I watched from a quiet corner of the outdoor terrace, sunglasses on my suit jacket folded over one arm. No one noticed me at first. Then I saw her. My mother. She looked thinner than I remembered, like a balloon that had slowly deflated but was still trying to keep its shape. Her hair was dyed a deeper brown, almost reddish, and she wore a pearl necklace that clashed with her sunburned neckline. She was laughing. That high, brittle laugh she always used when she was trying to convince everyone she was fine. Beside her stood my father, wearing a blazer that probably still had the same money clip in the inside pocket, the one he used to flick open dramatically whenever he wanted to remind us he was providing. His face was puffier than I remembered, like life had finally started pushing back. They were talking to Emily's parents, smiling, shaking hands, praising Caleb with that same sugary tone that once made my skin crawl. I did not approach them. Not yet. Then Caleb turned. For the first time in almost 2 decades, we locked eyes. His face dropped. Not enough to alert anyone else, but I saw it. The flicker. The unspoken question passing across his perfectly groomed expression. What is he doing here? He raised a glass at me, hesitated, then quickly turned away, like he had not seen me at all. But I knew he had. And more importantly, now I knew he had not told my parents I was coming. I slipped out before the toast and walked back to the hotel, my heart buzzing with adrenaline. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. They had asked me to come. They wanted me to be part of the family again. I was about to show them exactly what that meant, and I had not even opened my mouth yet. The morning of the wedding arrived cloaked in mist and tension. I stood at the floor-length window of my hotel room, watching fog roll across the Vineyard Hills, like something out of a film. I barely slept. Not because of nerves. I was not nervous. It was memory. My mind replayed it all like a silent reel. The cold pavement behind the gas station, the look on Mrs. Valencia's face when she pulled up, the silence at home when I returned. I ironed my shirt slowly and deliberately, pressing out every crease like it was a scar I could flatten. Then I reached for the old photo, folded, faded. 12-year-old me staring into the distance, eyes wide with something between fear and disbelief. I slid it into my breast pocket behind a silk square close to my chest. The shuttle to the vineyard was full of guests who did not know me. Distant cousins, old neighbors, Emily's college friends. Everyone chattered about the venue, the view, the dress. No one looked my way. I preferred it that way. When I stepped off the shuttle, the place had transformed. White chairs fanned out across the grass like dominoes. A floral arch stood at the center, thick with ivory roses and pale greenery. Classical music floated through the air, and waiters passed around glasses of Prosecco like it was liquid gold. It was, frankly, stunning. I kept to the back. I saw my parents again, now seated in the front row, beaming at guests and shaking hands with the officiant. My father laughed too loudly. My mother clutched a bouquet of white lilies that did not suit her at all. Caleb stood off to the side in a tailored tuxedo, talking to someone I assumed was his best man. Emily had not appeared yet. That was when an older woman approached me. She was elegant with silver hair and a navy blue dress. She stared at me for a beat, then smiled politely. "You must be Isaac." I blinked. "I am. I'm Evelyn Kensington, Emily's mother." "Of course." I straightened slightly and extended my hand. She took it with grace, but there was something else in her expression too. Curiosity. "Caleb told us you might be here," she said. "I just wanted to say thank you for coming." My guard went up instantly. "He told you I might come?" She nodded, her smile tightening a little. "He said there had been some distance, but he hoped this would be a step toward healing." I could have laughed. I did not. Instead, I said, "He's an optimist." She smiled again, more awkwardly this time. "Well, regardless, welcome. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask." I watched her walk away, her heels digging slightly into the grass. So Caleb had told Emily's side of the family, but not mine. Interesting. The ceremony began like any other, guests shifting in their seats, the officiant clearing his throat. Then Emily appeared, glowing and perfect, exactly the image everyone expected. The collective breath of the crowd drew in and held. She walked down the aisle to soft applause. Caleb waited beneath the arch like a prince accepting his crown. I watched it all from the back row, silent. The ceremony was short. Predictable vows. Nervous laughter. I do exchange like currency. Then came the announcement. the kiss, and the clapping. And just like that, they were married. The reception was where everything started to unravel. It was held in a massive glass-walled hall overlooking the vineyard. Chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls. Every table had a centerpiece of orchids and floating candles. Guests were directed to their seats by printed calligraphy cards. Mine did not exist. I wandered casually to the table where my parents were seated. There was an empty chair beside them. A name card marked, "Reserved for family." I hovered. My mother's eyes landed on me. "Oh," she said, sipping wine. "Not even standing." "You made it." "Apparently," I replied. My father did not speak. He looked at me, his expression unreadable, then leaned back slightly, like I was a question he did not want to answer. "I don't see a seat card for me," I said calmly. My mother shrugged. "Must have been a mistake. Maybe you're at one of the other tables. We didn't handle the seating arrangements." Sure they did not. I glanced around. The tables were nearly full. Laughter rose from every direction. Then I spotted Caleb across the room, deep in conversation with Emily and two older gentlemen in tuxedos. He saw me. He did not smile. Instead, he walked directly toward me. "Hey," he said, dropping his voice low. "Glad you could make it." "No thanks to you," I replied. He exhaled. "Listen, I didn't think you'd actually come, but you invited me." "I asked Mom and Dad to invite you." "That's different." My jaw clenched. "I figured you'd see the invite, toss it, and move on like you always do," he said. I looked at him, really looked at him. Tan, styled, confident. A man who had never truly paid for anything in blood or silence. "I came because I wanted to see if you remembered," I said quietly. "Remember what?" I did not answer. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the photo. I held it up and let it speak. His expression shifted. It was subtle, but real. His eyes darted to the photo, then to my face, then back to the photo. He swallowed. "That was years ago." "Yes," I said. "And you never said a word. You never told them to turn back. You never checked if I made it home alive." He looked around as if someone might overhear. "Isaac, it was one bad night. You were dramatic even then. I thought you were over it." Over it. Something inside me went still. "I'm not here to ruin your wedding," I said. "You can relax." He gave a short, hollow laugh. "Good. But I am staying until the speeches." He looked at me again as if he was not sure whether I was bluffing. I was not. Because the best revenge is not loud. It is surgical. And I had a toast prepared that they would never forget. The ballroom lights dimmed as waiters cleared the last of the dinner plates. Guests buzzed in a champagne haze. Some leaned back with full stomachs. Others danced in polite little circles to a four-piece jazz band tucked into the corner. Caleb and Emily sat at a long head table, their names displayed behind them in gold script. Everything sparkled. The wine glasses, the forks, even the people. A man in a powder blue suit clinked his glass. The room quieted. "It's time for a few words from the people who know the bride and groom best." There was polite applause, and Emily's father stood to speak first. His voice was smooth and rehearsed, a blend of wealth and warmth. He talked about Emily's childhood, her dreams, the first time she mentioned Caleb. He even cracked a joke about Caleb being so charming, they did not realize he was trying to marry up. Everyone laughed. Next came the best man, Caleb's college roommate, who kept things light and funny. Something about frat parties, Caleb's inability to cook, and how lucky he was to have found Emily. It was exactly the kind of speech people expect at a wedding. A little heart, a little humor, no sharp edges. Then the MC took the microphone again and glanced down at his list. And finally, we have a special toast from Isaac. The room went quiet. All eyes shifted. My parents froze mid-sip. Caleb's jaw tightened. Emily blinked in confusion. And I stood. I walked slowly to the microphone, ignoring the awkward shifting around me. A few guests whispered, some looked puzzled, others simply stared, unsure who I was or why I was speaking. I tapped the mic once. The sound rang through the room. "Good evening," I said, my voice steady. "I'm Isaac Caleb's younger brother." A few heads turned sharply. The words landed like a ripple in still water. I could almost hear the murmurs beginning to circulate. "He has a brother." "I wasn't sure I was going to come tonight," I continued. "In fact, I spent the last few weeks thinking about whether I should. You see, I haven't spoken to my family in 18 years. Silence. Not the good kind. The kind that sucks the air out of the room. I received a wedding invitation out of nowhere. No call, no email, just a card and a note that said it would mean a lot to the family if I came. I let the words sit. Then I pulled the photo from my pocket. This is me at 12 years old. I held it up between two fingers. Guests craned their necks to see. This was taken the morning after my parents left me at a gas station 80 miles from home. I had spilled a soda in the car, and instead of scolding me, they left. They told me to man up and figure it out. The crowd shifted. Uneasy glances traveled from table to table. Somewhere a wine glass was gently set down. They didn't come back. They didn't call. I slept behind a dumpster. The only reason I made it home was because a teacher picked me up the next day. My voice did not break. I never got an apology. Not from my parents, not from Caleb. And until this wedding invitation arrived, I thought they were all perfectly happy pretending I didn't exist. I looked at my parents. My father's face had gone pale. My mother's mouth hung slightly open like she was trying to summon a response, but could not find one fast enough. "Now, I'm not here to ruin anyone's evening," I said. "Emily, you seem lovely. Your family has been kind and welcoming." Then I turned my eyes to Caleb. And Caleb, well, you've always known how to put on a good face. That line hit hard. His expression cracked for just a moment. "But I think weddings are about honesty," I continued. "About truth. And it wouldn't be honest if I stood here tonight pretending we were ever close, or pretending I grew up in a house where family meant protection instead of survival." The room was stone silent now. People barely breathed. I was invited to this wedding to play a part in a picture-perfect day. A prop, really. A brother-shaped placeholder. I looked back at Caleb. "So consider this my gift to you." I walked to the head table and placed the photo right in front of him. A reminder of what family looks like when you turn your back on it. Then I turned slowly and walked away from the microphone. No applause. Just stunned silence and a few audible gasps. As I passed my parents' table, I heard my mother hiss my name barely above a whisper. My father started to rise. I did not stop. I did not look back. I exited through the side of the hall and stepped out into the cool night, the music now distant behind me. I was not angry. I was not shaking. I was free. But freedom is a strange thing. It does not always come with peace right away. Sometimes it just leaves silence behind. The kind that makes you wonder, what happens next? I had made my move. The fallout was still coming. The drive back to the hotel was quiet. No jazz band. No clinking glasses, no performative laughter echoing off marble walls. Just the hum of tires against gravel and the low whir of my thoughts catching up with me. I did not go back to my room right away. Instead, I took a walk down one of the vineyard trails behind the hotel, winding between rows of dark grapevines under a moonlit sky. With every step I took away from that wedding hall, the tension in my chest unraveled, thread by thread. I could still hear my mother's sharp gasp. I could still see Caleb's carefully composed face fracture in real time. I could still feel the confused stares of strangers trying to connect the missing piece that had been deliberately erased from the family photo. For most of my life, I believed I was the ghost in my own family. But that night, I had reminded them I was flesh blood and memory. And memory is dangerous when the people around you depend on forgetting. Back at the hotel, I found a voicemail waiting from a number I did not recognize. "Isaac, it's Emily." Her voice was low, calm, but brittle. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect that. "I wish someone had told me. I just wanted you to know I'm not mad you said what you did. You deserve to. And I'm sorry." She hung up without giving me a number to call back. That was the first apology I had received in 18 years. And it was not even from my family. I left early the next morning. No breakfast, no drawn-out goodbyes. Just a short email to the front desk asking them to cancel the rest of my reservation and send me the final bill. I did not feel like waiting around to see the aftermath. I knew my parents. I knew Caleb. They would either pretend it had never happened or scramble to spin it into a misunderstanding. Maybe both. But I also knew the photo was still sitting on the head table when I left. I kept the suit. I tossed the tie. Then, I went home. And once I was home, truly home, in my small apartment, where Max greeted me with excited barks and a wagging tail, something strange happened. People started reaching out. First, it was my cousin Hannah. She messaged me on LinkedIn. She said she had heard about the speech from someone at the wedding and wanted to apologize for never asking where I went after I disappeared. She said she always thought it was weird how no one ever mentioned me again, but assumed it was not her place to ask. We talked for a while. She asked if she could visit. I did not say yes. But I did not say no. Then came a message from Mrs. Valencia. She still remembered. She still had the photo she had taken. "I always wondered what happened to you," she wrote. "I'm so proud of you, Isaac." I had not cried in years, but I did that night. It was not loud. It was a quiet, aching kind of release. The kind you feel after holding your breath for too long and finally exhaling. I started sleeping better. I woke up earlier. I found a new rhythm. My job felt easier. My code felt cleaner. I took Max on longer walks. I started writing again, short stories, essays, anything that helped me pour the storm in my head into something that made sense. A week later, I got an email from a woman who worked at a nonprofit for estranged adults, people who had been cut off, disowned, or abandoned by their families. She had heard about the wedding speech through a friend of a friend who worked the event. She said it was the most quietly powerful thing she had ever heard. She asked if I would be willing to speak at one of their private retreats, not as a motivational speaker, just as someone who had lived it. I said yes. That one event turned into 2, then 4, then an invitation to sit on a panel at a university symposium about family estrangement and trauma recovery. I did not wear the suit to those events, just a simple shirt, jeans, sometimes a blazer if I wanted to look a little more polished. But I always carried the photo. I would show it when I spoke. I would tell the story exactly as it happened. No embellishment, no dramatics, just the truth. And every time someone came up to me afterward and said, "That happened to me too," I had not been alone. I had never been alone. My voice, the same one they used to call too soft, too sensitive, too quiet, had finally found its volume. It was not revenge. Not yet. But it was power. And with every person I helped, every story I heard, and every hand I shook, I felt it grow. Not the anger, the clarity, the certainty. Because while Caleb went back to his new wife and his polished reputation, he did not realize the ripple I had started. And he did not realize I was not finished. Because soon, someone else from their side would come looking, and she would want answers. It started with another email from Emily. This time, it was not short, polite, or carefully composed. It was raw. "Isaac, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did your parents really leave you like that at 12? I asked Caleb. He didn't deny it. He just said, "It's complicated." But you didn't sound complicated when you told that story. You sounded clear, like someone who's been carrying something heavy for a long time. If it's true, I need to know more. Please. I stared at the message for a long time. Emily had every reason to shut the door and move on. She could have ignored me. She could have spun it in her head as family drama. She could have written me off as bitter or unstable. But she did not. She asked for the truth, and I was not going to waste that. So I replied. I told her everything. No dramatics, no exaggeration, just the sequence of facts. I told her about the gas station, the silence when I returned, how I put myself through school, the way my name was never mentioned again, how they had rewritten the family photo like I was a smudge they could crop out. I did not blame her. I did not ask her to pick sides. I just gave her the truth and let it sit. She replied the next day, "I believe you, and I need time to process this. They never told me. Caleb said he was an only child until we got engaged. They erased you, and now I'm wondering what else they've rewritten. Would you ever be willing to meet for coffee, just the two of us?" It was like watching a crack form in a window that had always looked spotless. I knew better than to push. I said yes, but I let her set the time and place. We met a week later in a quiet cafe 2 towns away from her and Caleb's home. She wore no makeup, no pearls, none of the bridal polish, just a hoodie and jeans, her hair pulled back, her eyes swollen, like she had not slept. When she sat down, she did not even say hello. She just asked, what else did they do? So I told her. Not everything. Not the little humiliations. Not the 1,000 small cuts that never bled enough for anyone else to notice. But I told her the big ones. Like when my mother forgot my birthday 2 years in a row and then blamed me for not reminding her. Or when my father refused to co-sign a small student loan, saying, "You'll just waste it," while handing Caleb $5,000 for a trip to Cancun. Emily kept both hands wrapped around her mug the entire time. She asked questions. She took mental notes. She did not try to defend them. She just listened. Finally, she said, They called you a ghost at the wedding. I looked at her. That's how Caleb explained it, she continued. He said you vanished when you were a teen. Said you always had a flair for the dramatic. I blinked. They used the word ghost. She nodded. I could not help but laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was so absurdly perfect. They didn't lose a son, I said. They buried one. Emily went quiet. Then she leaned in, her voice low. You know what scares me most? I waited. She whispered, what if they do that to our kids someday? And there it was. The shift. The doubt had taken root, and Caleb did not know. Emily stood before she could say anything more. She said she needed time. She said she was grateful. She said she was not ready to talk to him just yet, but she would be in touch. 3 days later, I got another letter in the mail. No return address. Again, just like before. But this time, the handwriting was not my mother's. It was my father's. Inside was a note written in rigid, uneven letters. Isaac, I don't know what you think you're doing. This isn't helping anyone. You're bringing shame on the family. Let it go. If you keep stirring things up, there will be consequences. We gave you a second chance to be included. Don't make us regret it. Dad. There it was. No apology. No regret. Just a threat disguised as dignity. I sat with the note for a moment. Then I placed it next to the photo of 12-year-old me, two artifacts of the same legacy, and I smiled. Because now I had what I needed. Proof. Words written by his own hand, revealing exactly who he was and who he still was. I scanned the letter. I saved it to a secure folder. I backed it up to 2 cloud drives. Then I picked up my phone. I called a journalist I had met at one of the trauma panels. Her name was Claire Russo. She had once told me, if you ever decide to share your story, I'll help you do it right. She answered on the first ring. I'm ready, I said. But I don't want to just talk. I want to show them. She paused. Then she asked, how far are you willing to go? I looked down at the note, at the photo, at the name on the wedding invitation that had tried to erase me. All the way I said, the article was published under the title, Left Behind One Man's Quiet Escape from a Family That Tried to Erase Him. It went live on a Tuesday morning. By noon, it had already been shared thousands of times. Claire had done her research. She verified every detail. She interviewed Mrs. Valencia. She confirmed the gas station incident. She even tracked down my old landlord, who vouched that I had put myself through school without family support. The story included the photo of me at 12 standing near the dumpster with a torn backpack and cracked sneakers. It included quotes from my speech at the wedding. It included the letter from my father, blurred only slightly to preserve privacy. It included Emily's permission to mention that she had reached out to me afterward. Claire was careful and precise. It was not a tabloid piece. It was not a scandal bait hit job. It was truth told clean and unfiltered. And that was why it exploded. Because it was not loud. It was honest. Comments poured in. People said it reminded them of their own estrangement, their own moments of being dismissed, replaced, or silenced. Others praised the restraint I had shown at the wedding. A few people guessed which vineyard it had been, though I never confirmed it. But what mattered more were the private messages I received. Dozens of them came from people who had been disowned, forgotten, and labeled problem children by families who refused to take accountability. The best message came from a Kensington, Emily's older brother. His name was Mark, and he did not mince words. I always thought Caleb was fake, too polished, too rehearsed. Now I know why. I'm sorry they did that to you. My parents are furious. Not at you, at Caleb. They feel like they were lied to, used. They're meeting with Emily today. Thought you'd want to know. I did not reply. I did not need to, because 2 days later, another email arrived from Emily. Isaac, I read the article. I saw the comments. I showed Caleb. He exploded. Said you ambushed him. Said you made it all sound worse than it was. But you didn't. You didn't even share everything. And that's what made me realize you're telling the truth. He asked me to choose. I chose. I'm staying at my parents' place for now. The marriage is being annulled. I'm sorry it had to happen like this, but thank you for not letting me step into that lie with blinders on. Emily. I read the message 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and sat in silence for a long while. Because I was not celebrating. I was not gloating. I was remembering. I was remembering the day I stood in our hallway at 12 years old, holding a gas station candy bar in my hand, thinking, they have to come back. They have to. And now, nearly 2 decades later, the family that left me behind had finally tasted what it meant to lose control of the story. It was not over. 3 days after the article dropped, my parents called. I do not know how they got my number. Maybe through an old contact. Maybe they finally started paying attention to the places where I had spoken. When I saw unknown number on my screen, I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. It was my mother. Her voice was trembling, not with sadness, but with fury. Adam, how dare you? We invited you. We tried to be civil and you humiliated us. You've ruined Caleb's life. Emily's parents are threatening legal action over the gifts, the deposits, the reputation. You think this is justice? It's cruelty. Vindictive, petty cruelty. I hope you're happy. I hope you're proud of yourself. Then my father got on the line. His voice was not angry. It was quiet, almost defeated. You always were too soft. I should have known you'd grow into the kind of man who'd twist a moment into a weapon. Congratulations. You've destroyed your family. Don't ever call us again. Then he hung up. I stared at the wall for a while, wondering if the words would sting, if they would echo like they used to. But they did not. Because I did not destroy my family. They destroyed the version of me that still needed them. And that was the difference. I stood up, walked to my desk, pulled open the drawer, and took out the photo one last time. The 12-year-old boy in the picture had no idea what he would grow into. I smiled at him. Then I put the photo away, not because I was burying the past, because I had finally finished writing the ending. The fallout did not arrive all at once. It came in fragments. First, it was whispers. Mutual acquaintances from my hometown started reaching out. People I had not spoken to in over a decade. Some messaged me privately with shock, others with guilt. I had no idea. I thought you moved for college. Your parents always said you were difficult. Then came the social media shifts. My parents, who had spent years curating their image online, suddenly went dark. Family photos began disappearing from their pages. The proud parents of Caleb and Emily banner vanished. And the most telling sign was that Caleb's entire wedding album was deleted overnight. No explanation. Just gone. I found out later through a quiet LinkedIn update that Caleb had taken a leave of absence from his company. Personal matters, the blurb read. But I knew better. Emily had followed through with the annulment. She moved in temporarily with her brother and eventually returned to her studies. Weeks later, she sent me a short message. I'm rebuilding. It's messy, but it's mine. Thank you again. I hope you're doing okay. I was better than okay, actually. The nonprofit invited me to become a regular contributor. I began working with them part-time, helping organize outreach for other estranged young adults. I started writing not just articles, but a book. The working title was Ghost Son: What Happens When They Pretend You Never Existed. I did not write it for revenge. I wrote it for the kid I used to be. For the kids still out there, quietly packing a bag they will never unpack, because they are afraid even their footsteps are too loud. One day, I received a letter, not from my parents, not from Caleb, from Mrs. Valencia. It was still written in her loopy, generous cursive. Dear Isaac, I clipped out your article and read it twice. Then I put it on the wall of my classroom, right above the desk where I keep extra snacks for students who never bring lunch. I tell them about you sometimes, not by name, but your story. That sometimes being kind isn't just about helping someone up. It's about remembering them when everyone else forgets. I'm so proud of you. Love, Mrs. V. That one made me cry. Not the silent tears I was used to, real ones. The kind that crack something open inside. Because for the first time in my life, I did not feel like I was proving anything anymore. I was not a shadow. I was not the forgotten one. I was here. I had survived. And now I was living. So when people ask me how it felt to stand in front of my family and show them the truth, I just smile. Because the truth is, the best revenge is not watching them crumble. It is watching yourself rise in full daylight while they are still trying to rewrite the dark. And I have never looked back.